Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. So in this video, I'm going to talk about something other than crypto. Now, this is an important chart. This is the WTI crude oil chart. It is a chart that affects all of our lives. It is one of the founding blocks to modern society. When oil prices move up, it touches all of our lives. So in this video, what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about what this chart is getting ready to do, and I'd also like to tie it in to inflation. Now, just so you know, this oil chart is a repetitive structure. In other words, it has a macro repetitive structure. I did a video on this. You can see that video if you click the link on the upper right-hand corner. It's a worthwhile video. In there, I show how this structure is repetitive. However, for a quick review, if you don't want to watch that video, I will show you on the fly how it's repetitive. So if you take this original structure that took place from 1966 to 1979, and you copy and paste that structure over here on the chart between 1979 and 1990, you will find that this structure, once adjusted for timing, height, and depth, is a good match. So why did I just say once adjusted for timing, height, and depth? Well, the reason why you have to do that is because when a fractal or a structure repeats, the timing, the height, and the depth will always be unique. It will always be original. So that part of the structure does not copy the overall pattern. The basic idea does. So what that means is you can have a structure that plays out on this scale, also play out on this scale, or what that could mean is part of the structure may move higher than it originally did or lower than it originally did, but the overall basic pattern is still at play. So if you take this structure from 1979 to 1990 and you copy and paste it over here from 1990 to present, it also does match. So this structure, while it doesn't appear at face value to be a repetitive structure, it actually is. And in that video, the one I recommended you see, I go into detail showing how this is a repetitive structure. Now, there's one thing to note here. So when this structure begins anew, it starts off with a move up. Now, this move up looks tiny when compared to what came after this move up. However, when you compare it to the structure before it, it is quite large. This is the same idea right here at play. When compared to this structure over here, it is very large. So this structure is something that we will soon contend with. Now, let's jump over here towards the end of this structure. So we are nearing the end. Now, we have completed this peak right here. This peak is still yet to be completed. When I made that original video, the price of oil was not quite as high as it is now. However, as you can see, it is continuing to follow this basic idea, this structure. Now, the way I judged how high this potential peak will go is by using this height right here. So this whole part right here, starting from here all the way over to here, is one fractal. So there is a chance that it could be this ratio. In other words, this peak is in the same ratio of height and depth to this one. However, I would not count on that. But what you can count on is that this will be a peak here. It could be lower than this. It could be higher than this. We'll have to see how that plays out. So far, it does seem to be following this scale for the most part. You can see how this one actually went higher than this. We'll see where this one peaks out. But what we should expect is something similar to this to play out. So we should find a temporary peak here and then pull back and then continue to move up. We see that same basic concept over here. So the fractal told us that there was going to be a temporary peak here and then it will pull back, and we see that the timing was a little different. It played out over here and then it pulled back, and then even here it has another little peak. This one went quite a bit higher and then pulled back. So you see how while it doesn't tell us exactly how high, it's not a timing, height, and depth, they're always original. The basic idea, the basic roadmap is there. Even this little peak is this right here. So we, in the future, in the coming days, will see oil continue to move up. Now, it will come to a peak, and then it will decline. This will be the end of this structure. This whole structure will begin anew. And as I pointed out, this structure begins with a move up. So what I did is I aligned this and this to judge the potential height of this move up that will begin once this structure begins anew, and that looks like this. Now, I don't know if it will go this high. It may not go this high. It may go higher than this. I don't know. What I do know is historically, this peak right here in relation to this previous structure is usually high. It's usually quite high. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Now, for the subject that I want to talk about. So I want to tie this into inflation. Now, we all know that when the price of oil goes up, inflation does too. We experienced that with this recent move up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the U.S. inflation rate. This is the year-over-year U.S. inflation rate. Now, let me give you the big picture of this chart. I'm going to talk about the weaknesses of my analysis on this chart, so you're well aware of the limitations of what I am doing. So I believe that this chart is potentially a repetitive structure. And the reason why I say potentially is to determine if a chart is repetitive, you need the entire structure there, and then you need enough data to see that structure repeating. The more data you have of that repetition, the stronger your claim is. Now, this structure starts all the way back in 1915, so there is a lot of data on this chart. However, my problem is that it is on a month time frame, so I don't have that much data on a month time frame to truly analyze this structure. However, having said that, I do believe that it is repetitive, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to place some boxes on here to frame this structure a little better. So here is the first box. This box started in 1915, and it went all the way to roughly 1954, 54, maybe 55. So I believe that this structure is being repeated over here. So box 1 is potentially being repeated once again over here. This entire structure consists of two parts, box 1 and box 2. We have not completed box 2 yet again, so I'm assuming that this is repetitive. There's always the chance I could be wrong. However, once you copy and paste this structure and adjust it for timing, height, and depth over here, this is what it looks like. So as you can see, it does appear to be repeating, and this is why I believe it most likely is. So you have the move up, you have the move down. This is all quite nicely. Now, remember timing, height, and depth, they don't repeat. So in this case, you see that the original structure went much lower than it did today. However, the basic idea is still being played out. So we have this peak right here, and this was the recent struggle with inflation that we are recovering from right now. So this roughly took place in April 2022. Now, if we look at the oil chart and see where this peak coincided with the oil chart, it is over here. So that was April 2022, and that is roughly, let's zoom in a bit more. That is roughly right around here. So in this little area is where it peaked, roughly around the same point where oil peaked. So let's jump back to the inflation chart. If this is a guidepost or a map for future performance of the year-over-year U.S. inflation rate, we will soon potentially see inflation resurge, and this coincides with this right here. Now, let's jump back to the inflation chart. As you can see, this potentially peaks in the early part of 2025, January, February, March. It's all kind of forming a peak here. Now, this is important. We can't really predict timing. Timing could change. It's not something that is repeated. Could be this timing. It could be slightly different. It could be quite a bit different. So look at this as speculation. But we see this peaking in early 2025. We see this peak potentially also in early 2025. So we have a potential matchup there. Now, again, this is speculation. Let's jump back over to the inflation chart. So we have this third peak right here. And timing, height, and depth, none of these are copied. So potentially this could be higher, this peak right here. It could also be lower. Same is true of this one. This one potentially could be higher. It could potentially be lower. We'll have to see how all these things play out. This peak right here takes place in 2027, roughly. And if we jump back to the oil chart, this peak over here potentially also takes place in 2027. Now, the months don't agree. Now, that could be me just moving this a little too much or a little too little. Same with over here. All this is speculative. I don't know timing. I'm guessing at timing, but there is an argument to be made that the timing of this inflation this year-over-year inflation chart matches quite well with this oil chart. So that is the purpose of this video. I want to try to marry the two charts as much as I can. I'm stepping out on a limb here. View this as speculation. I could be wrong on the timing. All of this could play out differently, but still jive. So in other words, like this peak may not be here. It could be over here. It could be over here. Same is true of this one. And the same is true of these ones, but they still most likely would, my guess, end up jiving. And the reason is we all know from the real world that when the price of oil goes up, we have inflation. We are back at the oil chart. Well, folks, I hope you found this interesting. You know, this type of technical analysis that you just saw is unique. This is a system that I have discovered, I have developed. It uses historical structures of the past, fractals from the past, to predict future movement. Now, there are strengths and weaknesses with this system. The strengths are it can project into the future and be a good roadmap for future performance. The weak points are the timing, the height, and depth. I can't tell you how high something will go, nor how low, nor the timing. So view this analysis of timing as pure speculation, but we all know in real life that when oil goes up, inflation goes up. So there is, I believe, truth in this. We'll have to see how it plays out. If you found this video to be interesting, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't use this as financial advice. This is not financial advice. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.